We got another one. Here we are. And welcome. I always want to say this. I've been saying it for the longest time. Welcome to Beyond the OC. Welcome to Beyond the OC, formerly known as Welcome to, that other show.
Bitches.
Bitches, we're here. I'm Melinda Clark, and
I'm CG Mirich, drinking my coffee. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. CG, we started something new today, and some of our Patreons are in the audience. This is something we're going to start. If you're a member of the Welcome to the OC Bitches tier on Patreon, you can sit in the audience and you can write chats and comment. And can you look at chats on your phone there, CG?
I have no idea. Let's see.
Let's see if you can.
Mary says hi. Hi, Mary.
And Laura. And okay, cool. You guys can make some comments, and if we see it, we'll be able to react.
I have to tap on it, but I can see them. So if you see my hand going like this, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, cool.
Anyways, this is in the countdown, episode 48, The Journey, which is
in the countdown.
Yeah, in the countdown, it's episode 48.
Right.
Of the all-time favorites, which is season 3, episode 17.
I had a little brain fart this morning.
Yeah, you almost made me freak out.
Yeah, because wanted to, we're doing these things out of order, and you guys have all chosen these wonderful, your favorites, and I'm so glad there's actually a few in season 3. But I like to know what was going on beforehand, so I'm versed, and I watched the episode before. And it's when Julie and CG, I don't even know if you remember this.
Julie and CG?
Julie, and then I stopped. I didn't non-sequitur there, sorry.
Okay.
And Julie does her kind of Sharon Stone Basic Instinct thing to Dr. Roberts. And I said to CG this morning, how cool was that Basic Instinct thing? And CG's like, what are you talking about? That's not that.
I mean, I've seen it, but I was like, that's not this episode.
And I just had a moment where I was like, I can't do this to myself. I have to stick with one. Because it all feels like, I'm all about, the whole show is just about Julie to me.
You made me freak out that I watched the wrong episode. And then I went and looked while I was on my walk. And I was like, no, I watched the right episode. I think you watched the wrong episode.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. It's been a little busy in this brain lately.
So this episode's called The Journey, directed by Roxanne Dawson and written by John Stevens.
Yay.
So Mom, you clearly like to write these funny little intros.
Yeah.
You did the one with all the puns, the other episode. Last week, we didn't do a funny one because that was a serious episode. But so this week, you wrote one for me to read.
Because you're such a Valley girl.
And it's in the tone of a Valley girl. Actually, funny little tidbit. When I'm at work, I say I say it a lot. And one of my coworkers called me out on it. So we started talking about Frankie Valli's song, Valley Girl. So for like the whole hour that we were... Frank Zappa. Sorry, Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
For the whole hour that we were on register together, I kept going, oh my God, the Galleria.
Okay.
And he thought it was so funny. Anyways. So, MG, coming in at number 48, The Journey, season 3, episode 17, Ryan's turning 18, right? And his birthday bash is shaping up to be like a total roller coaster of emotions. Kirsten and Sandy are all bent on involving Ryan's mom, which is cool, but also kind of scary because, hello, emotional baggage much? Meanwhile, Summer's on a mission to uncover the truth about her dad and Julie's secret rendezvous, and it's seriously giving me heart palpitations. Seth is all hyped up about this surprise for Ryan's big B-Day, and don't even get me started on Marissa. She's lost in a sea of memories and mixed feelings, especially with Volchuk lurking around. With Ryan's attention on Sadie and his indecisiveness as our emotional compass, this episode's a wild ride of teenage angst and drama. Bring on all the feels because we're diving deep into the drama pool and there's no turning back.
Oh my God, gag me with a spoon.
Oh my God. It was so bitchin'.
Oh man, that song came out. Good job, by the way. Yay.
Thank you. I do characters pretty well.
Yeah, you do.
On my Second City training.
Yes. Oh man, that song was a big one when it came out. When I was
Valley girl, she's a Valley girl.
Totally. So CG and I listened to the first podcast, which was very much, it was just Rachel and myself going through the episode, literally almost scene by scene, or storyline by storyline. I can't remember exactly which. But instead of getting into all that, I just wanted to get your reaction of a few things, because this episode had huge fan reactions to what I posted, to what we posted, that the Marissa fainting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into that, let's just talk about a couple of the other things. And because I want to get, you guys had so many great, wonderful things to say, and we want to be able to include all of them in the short span of this podcast. So let's go. I want to get your reaction to a few things before we get into all that. Okay.
Okie dokie.
Okay. So yes, it does start with Ryan's birthday before we get into all that part of it. But Sandy decides that he's got to get Dawn all of a sudden. He figures out that she's in Albuquerque. She's in jail.
In typical Sandy fashion, he finds out everything.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. But I liked, so he goes to Albuquerque. She's in jail. He pulls his Sandy magic, gets her out. And he's like, they want you to pay back all these fake checks he wrote, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got it covered. You're clean slate. One condition, you come to Ryan's birthday. And Dawn can't even do that.
Well, and what did you think about that? Like, first of all, Daphne Ashbrook is wonderful.
Oh, she's great as Dawn. I love her as Dawn.
I'm going to point this out. We did ask her on the podcast. I don't know if she never responded, or we didn't get her on, or we couldn't find her or something. But, it's really important. I love that the writers remember that, he's turning 18 and we want to include the family members. And there's so much going on. She's in jail and there's probably embarrassment and shame. And he says, I just need you to come back.
Yeah.
You could see, I didn't see it as a bad mom, but just like, that's too much. I can't do that. What did you think?
It made me really sad, but I also I don't know, I was disappointed, but I guess in a way I kind of understood it because she thinks it was bad. In past seasons, she's just ruined things for Ryan. The poker party in the first season where she's drunk and falls over and stuff. And she just doesn't even want to potentially have any of that happen. So I think she's not choosing. It seems selfish, but in her mind, it's not. In her mind, she's choosing Ryan.
It could be actually this could be her rock bottom. And when you do that, you're not prepared or not ready to go into all that. Maybe this is this thing that helped her get on the right path. It's very, very possible because the next time we see her, I think she's doing better. We know she's doing better. So, because even though Sandy, sometimes I love this Sandy. I said this in the last podcast that I like him doing these kinds of things. Like I saw that he could have been doing this the whole series and, being that public defender, helping people, the underdogs. And I wish they'd done that more because now he's still in the middle.
I do like him in this role. It's like Sandy to the core.
Yeah. So, but I do think sometimes he thinks he knows what's right because that's what he wants. But
honestly, I think Sandy does know what's right.
He does.
Sandy always knows what's right. He's
it sounds right.
A+ dad.
It sounds right, but it wasn't right for her. And of course, the audience assumes that she once again just runs off to her addiction or her bad behavior. But I like to think that maybe this was a wake-up call. And I have a clean slate and I'm going to take it. So we don't know what happens off screen, but that was what I took from it. So moving on.
This honestly was my favorite storyline of the episode.
Why?
Was Julie and Dr. Roberts. Because, seeing you in relationships on shows, it's not as weird as it used to be. But you were Julie was so giddy in this episode. You had such a cute little crush and you were just really excited. And I was like, wait, this is kind of cute.
Okay. But are you attributing that to, because when we see her, they're rushing down dressing.
Yeah. But you're not naked.
No.
But no, when you find out about the cruise, Summer spills the beans on the cruise. Also, that scene was funny. Yes. When you and Summer run into each other and I was watching you just go It's just your mannerisms when you and Summer run into each other, I thought was really funny. But you were just like, when you found out about the cruise, you're like, oh my God, really? Like, he wants to take me on a cruise? And then in this scene, like, when you guys are dressing, you're like, you really like him and you want him to make it official. And then he's like, we'll wait until it's serious. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
Like you really like him and it's cute. It's like cute little giddy, like high school. Like, I really like you. Like,
Yeah.
do you like me back?
Yeah, no. And I think that's what can happen when, Julie's she's been in the trailer park. She's been humbled, but I like that. I've always said that, you can take the gold off the girl, but you can't take the gold digger out of the girl. She's
right. Like that's obviously a reason she's enticed by Dr. Roberts, but I do think she actually likes him. You can see that she's like, hee hee.
It's genuine. And then at the end of the scene with Summer, she's like, I get a new bikini. And she's like, oh.
And Summer's like, okay, you need to tell me that.
Yeah.
And then I really liked the scene with you telling Marissa at the restaurant.
She says, what did she said? I've been seeing Dr. Roberts.
And she goes, so what have you had done?
Oh, good idea. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
No, it's cute.
I thought it was like, obviously I don't remember exactly how everything went down after like you told her about Luke and all this stuff in the earlier seasons. I just remember Misha doing the scene where she like screams and flips the pool chair.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is like a good storyline arc of your relationship with like Julie and Marissa's relationship. So I thought it was very wholesome that she's like, I don't care.
Well, they've had healing. They've had some healing in the trailer of all things. It's like Marissa sees her because they're in the trailer. She's put a lot of energy. I think she's feeling loved and she sees her mom, no matter what, is surviving, and after Jimmy, took off, basically, she was like, we're going to figure this out together. What are we going to do? And she sees her mom. So Marissa has this forgiveness in her. She really does. There's a lot of kids, I think, who could hold on to resentments and have very good reason to be angry at parents, but resentments only really eat at you.
Yeah, I thought it was wholesome. It was cute.
Yeah. So this thing about, Julie and the cruise situation.
Mom.
Oh, my thumb.
No, it was me.
Oh,
I don't even, I was like this. My hand was like this and the thumb came up.
So didn't Summer and Dr. Roberts have they have a conversation where she says, and he explains that the cruise was actually not for Julie.
Yeah,
right?
It was for Step Monster, and he was going to re-propose to her to try and save it. This is the one part of that storyline that I was like, this is weird. I understand why he plays along because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. But at the very end of the episode, you see Dr. Roberts look at a ring and pack it with him. You have to assume that it's the same ring he was going to use to re-propose to his last wife.
Which is icky.
Yeah, and I don't remember if they get engaged or not.
Okay.
Spoiler, I don't remember if they come back from the cruise engaged. I can't remember.
Right. But the thing is, Summer said that this is what he does. And Julie's like, we are nowhere near that. But it plants a seed, so. Okay, let's get into the meat of what everybody really wanted to talk about, because when we opened in the Cohen kitchen and we learned of Ryan's 18th birthday and Seth wants to throw him a party, which is, and he's like, I don't want to do this.
Typical Seth fashion.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to do this. We didn't really celebrate birthdays. And, it's clearly a touchy thing. But
I thought it was funny. Like, I feel like I do this with people. Like, I'll just say something like morbid or like about my life. Like, I don't know, like with my friends, I'll just like drop something and everyone's like, so that's like Ryan's like, yeah, we celebrated my birthdays and then my mom started day drinking and was drunk on the couch and we stopped talking about it. And then Seth is like, all right, who wants to tap in? Like, who wants to answer him because none of us know how to respond.
Right.
I think that's funny. Like situations like that are funny to me.
Yeah. And he probably just needs everyone to continue acting normal because that was his normal.
Yeah.
but yes, so he's decided to do this. But then the big dilemma becomes, do I invite Marissa? And he doesn't know, because in the last episode they were on the lifeguard tower, and it's just isn't working.
Yeah.
So Ryan's been hanging out with Sadie.
So the whole dilemma is like, if Ryan invites Marissa, then that means he wants to get back together. But if he doesn't, that means they're broken up. I disagree. Like, I don't think it was as cut and dry as that. Like, he and Marissa have been through a lot. And like, Summer, Seth, Marissa, and Ryan are like a group, like the four of them. And even if it was just like a pity invite, I don't think him inviting her would be like, I want to get back together with you. I think him inviting her would be like, I'm having a birthday. You're still my friend. I know we just broke up, but I'm having a birthday.
But I think what's interesting is both characters are questioning whether they want to be broken up. Is it really over?
Mary says she agrees with me.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
and Laura said she agreed. It was funny.
Well, no, she was talking about the Dr. Roberts thing.
Right. Gotcha.
But
no,
I don't think it needed to be that cut and dry.
No, but I think that Kirsten is correct when she points out if you're having a party, it's important to at least have a conversation.
I agree with that. Yes.
I want you to know that you're welcome, but I don't want it to be misconstrued. And of course,
I agree with Kirsten. Like, a conversation, just being upfront and just like saying what you're feeling is better than doing nothing at all. So I agree. That was a good mom moment from Kirsten, being like, whatever you want to do, who cares? Just tell her. Don't just not invite her. Like, you have to, have a conversation with her. She deserves that at least.
So we got emails, comments, Reddit, Instagram, voicemail.
I didn't realize this episode was going to be like that huge.
So what Katie, our producer, found the clip and posted, because we're trying to promote each episode and get the fan input and get people to respond, and me just posting a little thing saying, hey, what are your thoughts? I think we're finding that if we post some of these moments from the episodes, people really respond. And there was a dramatic response. Yeah. We got an email from Barry Serpa. Barry, how are you? He writes, in season 2, we had a semi-traumatic experience creating distance in the Seth Summer dynamic. And in this episode, we start to see that with Ryan and Marissa. Johnny's death creates that, causing distance and a lack of certainty between them both. Ryan is dealing with his birthday, his mother, and his attraction to Sadie, while Marissa is looking for comfort and a connection and gets it with Volchuk. The model home, in a way, was the birth or center point of Ryan and Marissa's story, and the flashbacks cause her anxiety, and she faints. The toughest scene was her about to hand Ryan his gift, and she is too scared to talk to him at the end.
I agree. That is a very sad scene.
Yeah, and let's talk about this. Nobody wants to tell her about, like, Summer doesn't even want to tell her about it because she sees what she's going through. But then when at some point,
well, no, Summer doesn't want to tell her about their parents. Summer goes to the, what is it, RV? What's it called?
The trailer.
whatever it is, the box.
You know what, CG? I'm going to retire in a trailer park. Did you know that?
You do that, Mom. I'll visit you maybe once a year.
There's actually some really pretty ones on the beach. They're 55 and over.
I would be so happy for you.
Or something like that. Anyway.
Well, you got to wait for Adam then.
No, only one person. I live down the road from a trailer park. I got to tell you, California, that's from Laura, that California has the most beautiful, remember Paradise Cove in Malibu? We used to go there. Those are like $1 million trailers.
What?
Yes. They're like probably $2 million trailers now because of the location.
Why wouldn't you buy a house? Anyways.
There are some nice trailer parks, especially
I lost my train of thought. Oh, well, no. Summer was going to the trailer to tell Marissa about their parents, but then she chickens out and tells her about the party instead.
That's right.
And she uses it as like, this is what I came to tell you, actually. Right. And Marissa's like, well, I can't go unless Ryan invites me.
Right. So have you ever, Rachel asked me this on the podcast last, she said, have you ever made a mixtape? And I was like, no.
That's past my, like, that, mixtapes weren't my era, but people do make each other Spotify playlists.
Right. Okay.
I've never made one for someone, but people have made Spotify playlists for me before, actually. Or at least shared their playlist with me and been like, listen to this. I think you'll like this.
So Marissa.
Actually, sorry, I want to tell a funny tidbit.
Okay.
On my dating app, you know how on Hinge, you can put like prompts and people have to respond to them. One of mine is, tell me a song you think I'd like. So I get like music recommendations from guys on dating apps. And then there was this one guy who was like, this whole, like, do you like this song? I was like, yeah, I like it. And then he was like, okay, listen to this playlist. And he sent me a whole playlist he made me. And this was a guy on a dating app I had never met, ended up meeting him. But he made me an entire playlist of music he thought I would like.
And was it good? Were they
No,
good?
it was actually pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah. Because I told him, he sent me a song. I was like, oh my God, I really like that artist. So the rest of the music was like the same vibe.
Okay.
It wasn't.
You could tell a lot about a guy and their music choices. That's a good way to. But so why didn't you have a date with him?
I don't know.
Something.
I kind of consider dating apps as like an iPhone game, you know? Like I'll swipe on people I think are cute or like I'll message them, but I'm like, am I ever really gonna hang out with you? Yeah. Usually not.
Okay. Well, then getting back to the mixtape that
talking about dating apps.
So I think that, do you think that Marissa she sees that it's his birthday and she starts making this tape because, and we find out she says it's because, it burned in the fire. Yeah. And is that means there's romance there? Or do you think it's just a kind gesture?
I don't think it has to be romantic. I think it shows like the depth of their relationship and how much they've been through together, and that they can still, like, their bond is deeper than a romantic relationship. That's what I got from it. Like, she was making it to be a friend and show, like, without saying it, like, I care about you no matter what. That's what I got from it. I didn't think it was romantic. I don't think she thought it was romantic, but I think when Ryan went to the trailer and listened to it, he was also getting like flashbacks. Obviously, he didn't fall down the stairs and faint, but he was like thinking about their relationship and stuff. But again, I don't think it had to be romantic. It's just like deep and emotional.
So he hits, the way he closes the CD player or stops it or something. I think that was just, it sounded very like final, like no, but then he leaves her the invitation. Yeah. And I think it could have shown like people, it could have been like he was being negative or stopping or something, but I think it was more just an editing choice.
Yeah, no, I think it was just like scene is over.
Yeah, let me show a couple comments. Mary wrote, I miss mixtapes. Delara is here. Hi, I once made mixtape for close friend with a lot of OC songs. And Laura wrote, me too. I love making mixtapes and gave one to my ex-girlfriend.
Oh my God. Delara, go on Patreon and tell me if it works.
I'm going to do the same on my dating profile, CG. That's a great idea. Funny.
I got the idea from someone on TikTok and they were like, I get so many responses. Honestly, I haven't looked at my dating app in maybe like 2 weeks. Because again, it's like an iPhone game. I'm like, I don't really care. I bet I have a bunch of responses on that because that's the prompt that people always say things on, or that. And then the other one is like, this isn't even on topic. I just want to share. It's let's make sure we're on the same page about sweet or savory breakfast. And some people are like, only savory or else I'll never be full. And some people are like, I love sweet. The correct answer is actually both. So the people who say both, I'm like, you get it.
Okay.
But then the people who are like, oh, it has to be savory. I'm
no, you need a little flexibility like this. Like,
right? Like I want breakfast and maybe I want like a pancake and eggs, or maybe I want like a breakfast sandwich and an orange or some you got to have the mix.
How about we get to some people want Volchuk for breakfast.
Great segue, Mom, into talking about Volchuk.
Well, Marissa, she's starting to hang out with Volchuk because, it's just that we see that, he's been kind of stalking her. So she decides to go look for him.
Yeah.
And
I wrote in my notes that this was the start of Marissa's decline.
The breakup. And then because he came
the end
to
of
her,
this episode specifically.
Yeah, and the episode before where she's like, "What do you want?" And he basically says, "Did you ever wonder about me and Johnny? Johnny and I grew up together." Um, oh wait, he says that kind of here, but he said, "If you ever want somebody to hang out with," that's what he said last time. See, I get my episodes mixed up. So let's get into this visceral response from the audience, the scene of Paint the Silence by South. Can I say that Rachel and I didn't even mention the name of the song in the first podcast?
Oh my God, did you not?
No. We're like,
I didn't notice that.
And these are things that we miss. We're trying to give attention to everything, but I think music is so powerful that this scene is the reason this episode is on this list. An email from Chelsea McWilliams. I cannot emphasize enough how this is one of the most beautifully put together scenes of the entire series. The use of Paint the Silence being a callback to the beginning of Marissa and Ryan's relationship with the first kiss they shared on the Ferris wheel at the kickoff carnival in season 1, where the song was first initially introduced. I have chills just typing this and thinking about it all. And one of the things that I was reading in the book was that, and I'm sure that episode, that kickoff carnival episode, I have no idea what's on the list yet.
I'm sure it has to be. It has to be on there.
Because Josh talks about how the music, he was just using music off of his iPhone and such. But at some point they realized they needed more. It couldn't just come from his iPhone. So they had Alex Patsavas, who was recommended by Norman Buckley, and they worked together and on Fastlane. And this was literally one of the first of only 2 comps. It said, Josh said about the song, it just gives you all the feels. As soon as you hear that song, it just feels like this show. As soon as you said the word Paint the Silence, I had the full body rush of emotion and nostalgia. The song is just epic. You're looking for those authentic songs. So this song, Josh would hear songs and write to it. That's that's not often something that you find in television. So great email there. On Reddit, Dita Carlita wrote, Ryan and Marissa's first kiss on the Ferris wheel to this song is one of my favorite moments of the show. And this sister scene absolutely kills me. How they ended up from that moment to this moment truly breaks my heart. When I watched the episode on air, I was convinced Marissa's mixed CD for him would bring him back to her. When it didn't, and he abruptly turned the song off, it was a punch in the gut. It felt cruel that he didn't invite her to his birthday party. This scene hurts because it reminds me of how humans can be so in love and then one day they're almost strangers. I find it tragic. How many of you had that response?
Super tragic.
So this very strong, even though he leaves, it's like, did he invite her or not? But he ends up leaving.
He leaves the invite for her.
He didn't talk to her though.
Yeah. I mean, she's not there.
Right.
He went to talk to her and she's just not there. So he did the best he could.
Right.
I think.
Yeah. No. And I think, in the scene itself, and it's true. Like I didn't, when I said on the last podcast, when we were watching the show, I had no idea this was coming up. I'd forgotten and I didn't recognize it.
I didn't know it was coming.
No.
I didn't recognize the song until you told me. Because maybe if we were watching it in order again, we would have been like, oh, but I didn't recognize it until.
Well, I'm saying when we did the first rewatch for the other podcast,
well, yeah, I guess this is my first rewatch.
Right. And so the way she had that visceral feeling, and I went into detail, you guys can listen to it if you want, but I went into detail about how fainting is a real thing and how I have a problem, or in the past I've fainted when it comes to car crashes.
Called vasovagal response.
Vasovagal response. Car crashes and you in the hospital.
I was actually talking about that with one of my coworkers last night. I had a coworker faint 2 nights ago because her acrylic nail popped off and she saw blood. Like her whole fingernail came off and she fainted. But anyways, I was talking with my coworker about it last night. I was like, yeah, I just remember being hyped up on drugs after my tonsillectomy and then putting my mom in a bed next to me. And I was so mad at her because she was taking all the attention. she was like, they were taking care of her when I was the one who just had throat surgery.
I'm going to say this to people out there. If any, and you know this, the last thing nurses want to deal with is a parent who faints. They get pissed off. They get angry. They're like, really? Gotcha. It's like, so I've learned to kind of stay away and not be there in the recovery room. I don't know what it is, but it gets me. I'm a pretty tough one, but that's anyway. From Mel Bergstead, I think, on Instagram. The paint the silent scene, this scene is heartbreaking because you see what an impact Ryan has had on Marissa and how much he means to her. You know how her life is spiraling out of control without him, and especially with Volchuk. She made Ryan the CD as a loving, nostalgic gesture, and him just shutting it off like that and then not inviting her to the birthday party, meaning not wanting to get back together, is like the last chance for Marissa and him. With him closing that chapter, we all know what's happening later in the season. So she has a good point.
I agree and disagree with what she said.
Well, because I keep, and a number of people are saying she's not, he didn't invite her. He did, but he didn't do it in a way.
He didn't do it soon enough. He did it last minute. He did it in a way that he's like, I don't want to get back together. That's what the point was. And so for an audience, when you pull all of a sudden, and this scene was beautifully done, when you see it and you see Misha with her hair was more brown and she even looked younger, and it pulls your human emotions back to that. And this is great because it's season 3 and it makes you feel all of those things that you were feeling in season 1 in a beautifully tragic way. And now for people who know the show and rewatch it, they know that this is the beginning of the end for her. Yeah.
This is so I think I realize now like why that was so visceral. And I'm so surprised we didn't talk about it more on the first podcast.
Yeah. So I agree that it shows like what an impact Ryan had on Marissa's life, because like Marissa was this mean girl in school and dating Luke and overdosing, and maybe she wasn't mean girl, but she was with Summer and
Untouchable.
What was it? Yeah, Holly or something.
Yeah.
But then she's overdosing in Tijuana and like all this stuff, and like she is her best self when she's with Ryan. And I do think that this episode is where you can see like he's resigned to the fact that they're not going to be together. Like he has, I think, made the decision. You can see in the way he acts, like he's made the decision that he doesn't want to get back together with her, and her whole life flips upside down when Ryan's not around.
Well, and it's too much, between Oliver and Johnny and her Nurse Nightingale tendencies of saving people. He doesn't feel safe in that, and he's starting, and he gets, he meets Sadie and starts having feelings for someone who's just this super cool, super relaxed, super chill chick, and I think he wants to explore that. So Margaret Waldersea from Instagram wrote, the soundtrack of the show was absolutely legendary. I agree. The whole show basically defined my early teenage years, but the soundtrack just touched me. Whoever was behind the music choices deserves so many awards. That's, again, Alex Patsavas, who we had on the podcast, one of the great conversations, and I learned so much. I had no idea what goes into being a movie. Now, a few other comments that I just wanted to say that I really loved. I know Volchuk is supposed to be the villain, but I love him. This scene always makes me cry. Now, we did see some really,
you see his soft side.
It's very,
but
very
it's like
tiny.
Soft.
But, he's like, let's get some help. She faints, and then he takes her back to the trailer. And do you want to tell me what happened? And
you see his version of vulnerability, which I was like, okay, that actually makes him a character and not just a bad guy. Like bad guys, it's like they're assholes, whatever. But when he's like, my mom always wanted me to be like Johnny. Johnny was perfect. Johnny was amazing. And he's dead. And that's not fair. And I'm grieving and dealing with it. And you're like, oh, so the bad guy actually has emotions, and it like rounds him into a character.
Yeah, I think I've shared, and I know I shared on the other podcast that we had a friend who passed, and it was he was like the center of our group, and how it affected the different teenagers. Some disappeared, some went into themselves, some had, were able to deal with it and move on, and some to this day still have issues. And it was everyone takes death like that really interesting. So I appreciated that they wrote that, because I really related to that. That's something that was a part of my teenage years. One of the best parts of the show is this is from Ili. I know. Anyway, one of the best parts of the show is the perfect placement of the songs and the artists that perfectly convey the emotions going into the scenes. One of the best shows ever created, in my opinion. Though, yes, Marissa did deserve better. I also 100% believe that Ryan and Taylor were made for each other. No questions asked. Ooh, thank you for this awesome discussion and for fueling my musical addiction in such a beautiful way. If it weren't for this show, I never would have discovered the Killers, Finley Quay, or William Orbit's Dice, or any other artist involved in the show. Thank you, really. Me too. I would never know, because it definitely. I always felt on set. I always felt like such a nerd, and it's like my mom. She was a ballet dancer, and I remember in the '90s saying something. Oh, a Beatles song came on, and she was like, "Oh, that's a new song. Is that's a catchy song?
Mom,
is it new?"
Mom, I live with her right now, and she does this all the time.
Like, Mom, it's the Beatles.
I played "You're So Vain" by Carly Simon.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, is this new?" And I was like,
"Yeah.
No,
right.
No, it's not.
Like, I'm listening. I'm a ballet.
No, it's okay. It's not new." And then she goes, "Is she calling him vain? Why is she doing that?"
That's funny.
I want to read this one because I think this is a real thinker. It's long, but it's you haven't even seen this because I forgot to copy and paste it into our notes.
Okay.
So it's just like a random Reddit post from a year ago. It's new.
Mm.
And it's like titled Ryan and Marissa season 3. And it says, "I think every issue they had in season 3 was because of the Trey thing. They clearly both needed to talk about it to each other, especially Marissa. But every time someone mentioned that, like Seth said, if I don't deal with it, it's going to cause problems, they were like, I'm fine. It was obviously not fine. Ryan and Marissa both needed to see a therapist or something. But before that, they could have at least talked to each other. As Marissa said, they went through it together. I really think that Johnny was just a symptom of the Trey issue, not the cause of just more jealousy. I think what happened with Trey in the aftermath broke the communication between Ryan and Marissa, and Johnny just happened to be there for Marissa, and he understood her. And they only started to bond because she could talk to him about Trey, and she felt she couldn't talk to Ryan about it."
Good point. I love you.
It says Trey was Ryan and Marissa's undoing, not Johnny.
Yeah, no, that's true. They had issues. I mean, it's and instead of them coming together to grow from this painful, tragic experience, she went to a different school, and they were further and further and further apart. And it just, I mean, like when he actually calls and says, "Hey," and she's like, "Hey," and he doesn't have to say anything. She's like, it's not working, right? Okay, done. Even though I think they know in their heart that it's over. But how do you get over that when you actually do have some true deep feelings? But then you can't even express it. So it is interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting because when you think about it, like, they never really did process the Trey thing, like, together.
Yeah, that's true.
They kind of just, like, what, Marissa killed his brother.
Yeah.
Like,
well, no, he didn't die.
But
yeah,
like, and then he leaves the show and whatever.
Yeah.
But
it's a big one.
She almost kills his brother, or she's intending to, because he's going to kill Ryan. And they just were like, okay, like, she shot his brother and they didn't address it or talk about it. Like, that's a traumatic thing. The person, I kind of cut in half what this Reddit thing was, but it says that's a lot for two teenagers to go through no matter what. And they didn't even like deal with it in a proper way.
Well, and even at the end of this episode, when you see Volchuk and Marissa on, because she goes to the party and she turns around and decides to leave. But then when you see them at the lifeguard stand, they're not chatting and talking and processing. They're just sitting there in silence because there's a mutual understanding.
Yeah. Sometimes words don't need to be spoken. It's just the presence.
Okay. Good one, Siege. I like that.
Yeah.
Let me just a couple questions that were kind of I appreciated. Somebody was Honey Teal said, I'm really curious how fall scenes are filmed. Was that a dummy or a stunt actor? That would have been a stunt actor. They're great. They're talented. They no, it's amazing. I mean, stunts are always amazing. People they're human beings really doing this. And yeah, I don't know exactly who that was on that day.
Looked exactly like Misha. Couldn't tell the difference.
Right. From 615 Deuce, I want to. I appreciated this on Instagram. My favorite show. We would all gather around after patrols and watch the show when we were in Iraq. Bunch of wore out soldiers gathered around in a CHU watching the OC. We were completely invested. Good memories. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
I like when, people use shows or things to get through difficult times.
Yeah. I appreciate that so much.
Oh, Mary asked a good question. It says, Marissa never ended up telling Trey what he did to her, did she?
Telling
I don't
Ryan?
like that he tried to assault her. Marissa never told Ryan what Trey did to her, did she?
Oh, no, he found out because Seth told him.
But Marissa never told him herself.
Yeah, maybe that was part of it too. I mean, think about it. I mean, and Ryan probably feels guilty that he assaulted Marissa too.
Oh, 100% Ryan feels guilty because Marissa's like, they had just gotten back together and Marissa's like, I'll help you. Like, I'm going to be a good girlfriend. Of course, Ryan feels guilty. And then it's conflicting emotion. I mean, we'll talk about this more when I know obviously that episode is probably in the top 10, ooh, what you say?
So let me play a let me
play. let me.
Hey Melinda, this is Sasha from Macedonia. Huge fan of the show. I grew up watching it, but I still remember first time watching this particular episode because that's when I first time felt nostalgic about the show. And I've never had any feelings about any other show before. I think that's probably because the episode was really well written, and in the montage they show us the reality of the characters in season 1 versus the reality in season 3, where everything is changed and everybody is in a different place. The music was a great choice. It evokes the nostalgic feeling. And I really want to say thank you for doing this. Thank you for reminding me to watch the show all over again. And it now just made me feel nostalgic about my past as well and my inner child that used to watch the show. Thank you once again and have a great day.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thanks for sharing.
From Macedonia. I love that we have people from all over the place. Some really good points. And when you can see, there were some shining moments in season 3. And this is even though
I'm surprised, honestly. And then the next episode we're doing is also season 3. I'm surprised that a lot of season 3 is in the top.
Well, this bizarro, they call it in the book, bizarro season. They did some, when Josh talks about how much he didn't like it and how he was hiding and such, but there was still some important moments that brought people the love, because I think that's, the pain of romance and true love and tragedy is what makes a good TV show. Yeah. As painful as it is to see Ryan and Marissa apart, it makes for good storytelling. So
I also like what Sasha said about the nostalgia, because it's in high school, and obviously it's a very dramatic show. A lot of high schoolers don't go through what these kids went through, but these little moments with Marissa and Ryan remind you of your first heartbreak, your first relationship, all of these things. It makes you nostalgic and it makes you feel those deep things because it portrays the really simple things like that really well too.
Good insight. So let's get to our guest.
Hello.
I don't know if you all remember on the end of Welcome to the OC Bitches, our very last episode, we had the honor of Java Doodles reenacted the scene with the very last scene of the episode, and it was so moving. But let me read you all a little bio about our special guest. Java Doodles is an animator, content creator, and YouTuber living in Los Angeles. Java Doodles started making animation content during the pandemic and has amassed over 800,000 TikTok followers, 390,000 Instagram followers, and 1.7 million YouTube subscribers in just a few years. Java Doodles loves making comedy animation and collaborating with like-minded storytellers. Some noteworthy collaborations include comedian Kevin James Thornton, the podcast Podcrushed, featuring Penn Badgley. You guys know him. Nava Kavlin and
Penn Badgley.
Sophia Ansari. Kavlin, did I say that right? And incredible musicians such as Andre 3000. Java Doodles plans to continue growing in the social media and animation world and hopes to keep making people laugh. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited because I didn't know that you made that animation like for my mom's show. Your stuff comes up on my Instagram Explore page all the time.
Oh my God, no way.
I'm obsessed.
Thank you so much.
When I found out you were our guest, I was like, that's really cool because you just like pop up on my Explore page all the time.
That's great.
Oh, that makes me so happy because I just want to reach as many people as possible and make people smile. That's really all I want out of life.
Oh my gosh, your stuff it's so cute. Like,
thank you.
I love the cute little characters so much.
Thank you.
Where did the name Java Doodles come from?
It's funny. When I went to college, I sort of started drawing on these coffee cups and then leaving them around campus, like just, silly little idea. It started as a joke, kind of. And then when Tumblr was a huge thing, I started a Tumblr account for it. And a friend of mine, he's like, oh, like, what are you going to call it? And I'm like, I don't know, like something with coffee and doodles. He's like, how about Java Doodles? And I was like, yeah. And funny enough, that friend started his own animation studio out in LA as well. So we're both in the animation industry. And I will never forget when he suggested that name. So it was very cool.
That's awesome.
And I guess we should mention to people just listening, Java Doodles is Java Doodles. We don't see a face. We see Java Doodles.
This is me.
It's a secret identity, huh? Well, I also noticed, like, when we posted for this episode, it's so interesting. Like, you know how you go into your Instagram comments and it'll just put the top comment. Not necessarily, but yours for some reason was like my top. Every time I'd open my Instagram, that was the number one. So I'm going to read it. This episode makes me so emotional every time, really dives deep into how trauma gets stored in the body and reactivated through new, unexpected experiences. The passage of time kind of just disintegrates and we get thrown back into that moment, almost like time traveling. Let's talk about that.
It was like, for some reason, the music in the OC, it just transports me right back to where I was when I was watching it. So like for me, I was able to observe the same effect in the show because like they use music as this sort of device to bring the characters back to moments that were important for them. So it made me think of like that Ferris wheel scene, like where it was a really good time between Ryan and Marissa. And then you see Ryan sort of absorbing that moment. And you see Marissa like really going through it in that moment too, like with someone completely new. And then Ryan sort of deliberating like, oh, like, do I invite Marissa to the party or like, do I sort of let this go? And then you see him like shut off the music and like, that was just very powerful to watch. And then you see Marissa just, obviously she's not feeling well and she's thrown back in that moment of like, this is where everything began. So it for all the characters, it sort of seemed like one of those pivotal moments.
I love that you bring up trauma in the body, or there's that book that's called
The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah.
And you hear, as you grow up, as you're on your journey of life, you hear about things like, and emotions are these chemical reactions in the body. And a fainting, I had said this before, but a fainting spell is essentially like a lack of blood to the brain or oxygen or whatnot. But these things can, and I love that Misha actually chose to be like nauseous in that, because everything starts spinning, you get nauseous. It's like there's such this mind-body connection that with emotions that as we go along and we have these experiences. I mean, I remember getting ill once from a breakup, like literally vomiting from being from breaking up and couldn't eat. You literally become sick and with grief, and it's a very powerful thing. And as teenagers, we were just talking about the fact that they have no way to process all of this between a sexual assault and guns and her friend off of. I mean, she is fainting is the least thing that could be happening to her right now, and then ultimately she does go on a path that's barely surviving. So I just thought that was really great, and I really appreciate you writing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to really like the OC just has such a special place in my heart, and whenever I see you post about it, I just get like it just brings me back to that, and I get really excited to like re-experience that because it was such an important part of me, like growing up into my adulthood. And I whenever I revisit the show, I like to feel those same feelings that I felt growing up. It's just very nice.
How old were you? Oh, asking the same exact question. How old were you when you started watching?
I think I was 14 or 15. Like I was just sort of getting to that age where I'm like, oh, I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm not an adult, and it's weird. And then like it was over the summer the first time I caught a glimpse of the OC. My older sister, she was so cool. Like I thought, I think she's like the coolest person in the world. And she and one of her friends they were staying up late, and they had all the DVDs of the OC, and I had never seen it before. And I walked in, and they were like so entrenched in the show, and I'm like, "Ooh, what are you watching?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the OC. Like you wouldn't understand." And I'm like, oh. But like it made me like want it. Like I don't think they said it to be like snarky, but I was like, oh, like it made me so curious about it. So like I kind of like secretly watched, and I was like getting really into it. And I'm like, I think I want to watch this like on my own. So I started from the very beginning, and I was immediately hooked. So yeah, I just remember it was one summer like before school started, and then I think season 2 was about to start, and then everybody was talking about it. So I was like, oh my god, like I'm actually caught up, and I'm actually in the know of what everyone's talking about. So I felt really excited to like be a part of something really, really big.
What character did you relate to the most when you were a teenager?
Oh,
like even Seth or Ryan, or if you like, was it a Seth because he was were you dating men?
It's funny. There's different parts of me in all of them, which is why I love it so much. Like, I think Seth is probably the one I relate to the most because like he was a little strange, and like I always felt like I never really fully fit in. Like sometimes I felt kind of like on the outs a little bit. Like I always did my own thing, and like especially with the comic books, and that's kind of what I was doing. I was always drawing my own pictures and comics, and everyone was like, "What are you gonna do with art?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'll figure something out." And then there was like the angsty teen Ryan. Like I definitely felt like kind of pissed off at everything sometimes, and then like. I loved Summer and Marissa's friendship. Like I always wanted friendships like that. So I really enjoyed the scenes with like both of them just like having fun. And, I loved all of them. And they were such a fun group of friends. So it just made me really happy. I felt like I was spending time with like my friends in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever feel like were the adult storylines interesting when you were young? Or are they more interesting as you're older?
It's funny you say that because growing up, like, whenever I would always sort of like want to skip ahead to like, the more teen storylines. But now watching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is also interesting, and it all relates. And like, Sandy and Kirsten, and like, of course, Julie, it's hysterical. Like I really grew an appreciation for Julie as I got older, because before I was like, oh, she's so evil. Like she's so mean. Like she hates Ryan. Now I'm like, oh, like this is hilarious. Like she's so funny. And like, I've grown to appreciate her very much.
Yeah. I did the exact same thing watching for the first time. I mean, maybe I skipped through my mom's scenes because it was my mom.
Right.
But I did the same thing. I think when you're a teenager watching it, like you just relate so much to the younger characters. It's like, that's like tunnel vision, and you're not able to like appreciate the humor in the adult storylines. And then rewatching it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and also I found Caleb I was like not interested in Caleb at all. I'm like, oh, he's so annoying.
I so agree. But then now rewatching like Caleb, I'm like, this is awesome. Like he's funny.
He's really funny.
Like he's not meant to be funny, but it's so funny.
And like the Vegas trip is like one of my favorite episodes with Caleb too. I'm like,
so funny.
Who is this man?
That was my next question. Like, what's one of your favorite episodes other than something like this? Or
oh, I loved like the carnival episode. It like made me believe in true love. I was like, wow, there's like something out there for me, hopefully.
Yeah, I was just saying before you hopped on that like the show does a really good job of like the muscle memory and everything, a really good job at portraying like the simple things from when you're a teenager, like your first love, your first relationship, like all this stuff. And I agree, the carnival is like makes me think about my first relationship and just being young and giddy. And I'm like, they do a really good job at all of that stuff.
Yeah, and that song playing on the Ferris wheel, like later returning, like I have such memories associated with that song now. I'm like, this is so special. Like, and there's something about like the carnival lights, and like I love Anna's character. Like I love how Anna was there. Like confidence Cohen. Like that was like a big, like I would say to myself, like in brave moments, like, okay, confidence Cohen. Like I'm not Cohen, but that's what I would say to myself.
No. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, I have 1,000 questions for you. But I don't know how much time we have, but
oh, you're good. Anything.
I guess where you're at now, like what do you guys appreciate the most about the OC when you think back to it?
Oh, there's so much, and what's so interesting is revealed in this book is that we all had such different experiences. I had never in my life had a job that no matter what, there were a couple times where I had to get up at 3 a.m. because I had to go do a wardrobe fitting at 4 before you start working or doing hair and makeup at 5 to be working at 7. Other than that, I couldn't wait to get to work. I thought it was so fun. I was doing something I'd never done before, and they were writing for my character, which meant that they were inspired for the character, which means they liked what I was doing. It feels like a collaboration. It was, and it felt like a place to go play. And so for me, it was fulfilling creatively. I know that at some point it didn't feel quite so much. I was going to say in this episode, I was going to ask this episode in particular, all of a sudden I was like, Ben really doesn't look like a high school student. I had never really noticed that before, but because now all of a sudden I was like in the season 3, I was like, man, he isn't at, I mean, I bought it and believed it in that first season. But anyway, that's kind of not what your question was. So I really appreciated it. And doing the podcast made me realize how important it was to kind of, it wasn't just myself, but there were so many people that started their careers in the writers and especially the creators on the show and behind the scenes. So many people, that was like a lot of people's first jobs.
Wow.
And so it was rewarding to do the podcast and really reconnect with people. That's what was great. Like I have everyone on my phone now.
That's incredible. And like, it seems like everybody took that as an opportunity to reconnect with you as well. And I got so much joy out of listening to like, it would be like, I'd go for a walk and I'd be like, oh, I'm so excited. I get to listen to the new episode. Like it was like my walking podcast for the whole pandemic.
I love it. I mean, CG, you got to go to school for this. So
yes.
What for your school? For what?
You got to go to private school.
Yeah. I was going to say, I do appreciate that this show, it made my childhood the way it was, but I guess as an adult, like rewatching it, like I really appreciate like real television like this. I feel like they don't make shows like this anymore.
They don't. Not at all.
All the drama all at once with the teenagers and the adults and all the cohesiveness between them, and rewatching, especially like the first season, I'm like, there's like nothing will ever be like this again. And it's so unique and different even from the shows that were on at the time. And I think I really appreciated watching it in high school, mostly because that's when I watched it for the first time. And it's just so relatable and it's so well done. And yeah, I guess just that era of TV. I know it's like technically nostalgic for me because I was I was 3 when the first season was airing. But it's, just that the way they did it is so I think impactful. Like TV will never be like that again
because they're doing things like Euphoria or even Gossip Girl afterwards was not quite the same.
Or they're just doing like now the shows they make now. It's like 8 episodes and it's all out at once.
Right.
And just go through it and not like they shove everything into 8 episodes. But this, like the first season is 27, 26,
27,
like 27, and so there's just so much to watch and it's so good. Like you don't get bored. Like right. I don't think when I watched it for the first time, I wasn't bored. Like the whole first season, I was like, okay, next episode. Like you don't get bored. Like it's just so creative and there's so much to watch.
Yeah. There's like enough serious and enough funny to like keep it balanced. Like there's always that comic relief aspect. And what's interesting about the industry right now, they're not investing in new ideas. Like they used to really take a chance on things like the OC, and they used to give it time to breathe and like time to develop. And like, you know, after the first season, it's like, oh, we can use this as a base for the next season. Now they just, if a show doesn't immediately go viral or take off, they just cancel it. And I'm like, why? Because it makes me think, like, if the OC came out today, like, would they invest as much as they did back then? And it makes me like hope for the, you know, a better future of TV. Like what they used to do was, it was like a golden age of television that I really have come to appreciate.
I agree.
I hope that we can sort of get back there.
I agree. Like that time of television is great. Like even shows that started in 2007, 2008, like when the OC was ending, like all of those, that time period of television is so good.
Yeah. But yeah, I will point out the reason that the OC had so many episodes is Fox had this as their new 90210. 90210 had done like 36 episodes in a season. In fact,
wow.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah, I think it's like 34, 36, it's something crazy like that. And they knew how they had gotten it down to a science where they could do these things. They could just churn them out. And I think they asked Josh to do even more. And he was like, no. So that's why we ended up having, if Fox would have asked for more, would have taken more if they'd been able to do it. And they were each season we kind of went down a little bit in how many. I think the least we did was 16, but then this season I think we did 24 or something like that. So yeah, that's it. But then my last question to you as we wrap this up, thank you so much for being here, is what ultimately did the OC mean to you?
It's funny because like the first thing to pop in my head is it meant everything to me. Like, and it still does. It has such a special place in my heart. I will probably always, like, my friends would make fun of me with how much I would rewatch it. They're like, oh, you're rewatching it again? And I'm like, of course I am. Like, I need my yearly rewatch. But it gives me like, it just gives me this feeling that I can't put into words. It makes me, it's like a part of me as a person. And it had such a special place in like my personal development. And like, I learned something new every time I watch it, which I really appreciate. And, it actually leads to a question I would like to ask you. Like when I created that finale animation for you guys, it was like, it felt like opening a door and then closing a door in a weird way. Like I was opening a door of communicating with you guys and just showing my appreciation. But it was also like, since I was doing like the finale episode, it was like, okay, I get to like close this chapter of my life, but like in a really symbolic way. And it was such a pleasure to be a part of that. And like seeing your reaction to it was like, it felt like a really full circle moment for me. So I wanted to ask, like, what was going through your head when you were watching that? And like, what did my animation mean to you guys?
Oh, so like, did you see Rachel?
She was just can't believe I made her cry.
I don't think it takes much, but it's a really interesting thing to do a podcast, number one. And what the podcast like meant to me, it wasn't just how much fun. I had no idea. You guys are making really good points. I had no idea that, I mean, I'd watch the show because I was actually a fan of it, but you're right. I don't get bored. You would think that continuing to do this, I'd be like, every once in a while, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing this again. But then I watch the episode and I'm never bored. I just, and I always find little tidbits I hadn't paid attention to. And just having the ability to do the podcast and actually develop a skill that I had never thought I would be developing. I like to hide behind characters, and the podcast itself was so, and the show itself was wonderful. Doing the podcast was so rewarding. And it was the last day. We're not doing this again. Josh was there. Rachel's there. We'd gotten Ben on the episode. It was a big deal. And your animation just made us heightened it. It made it, I felt very special that you did that for us.
Oh my God. That makes me so happy.
And it was so, and it's really so touching, that last scene. And I think a lot of people, even though it was the end, the finale episode of the OC is quite rewarding. It does wrap things up and it kind of gives hope. And then just seeing it, your characters in the animation, it's CJ, I'll have to, I don't know if you got to see it, or it's on, we can watch it on YouTube or.
Yeah, no, I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's was such a great idea. I mean, how it came about is such a, like, did you offer it to us or did our producer, how did it come about?
It's funny because I had reached out, I think weeks prior. I was like, I would love to be a part of this in some way. And then I never heard back. But then later on, I got an email and they were like, hey, like, do you want to do something for the finale? And this was like a few days before. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, like what projects could I move around because I really want to do this. And I just got to work that night and I was like, okay, how can I find a moment in this episode? And I just decided to do the last, I think 30 to 45 seconds of it where, you know, you see Ryan and you see the new kid and, you know, hey, you need help. Like, and that was so, you know, it just shows like him paying it forward.
So full circle.
Exactly. And it was a full circle moment for me. So I was like, this is what I'm doing.
That's amazing.
I didn't know what the reaction would be, but I was like, I'm just going to do what I do best. I'm going to, you know, create a shot for shot remake with all like the little zoom ins and the effects. And when I sent it over, I'm like, I just hope they like it.
Oh my gosh. I apologize if you didn't hear it sooner, but yes, it was just, it was a moment. And I think there's a picture of like Rachel and I, like, I think my face looks like this. Because I was really sad when the show was over.
Yeah.
You know, and it's totally because I had two things in my life, being a mom and being Julie Cooper. and I would go to work for a few days a week and run back to my child. And so it was a perfect job for me. It was like the perfect job. It was in LA. It was all this. So there was, so I had that same familiar thing of you know, life isn't about staying in the moment. It's going on to the next moment. But your art was so well appreciated. And thank you again so much. It's so nice to meet you. And
it's so great to meet you too. It was definitely a highlight in my personal journey as Java Doodles. I'm like, this is like what I've always wanted to do. And it just felt wonderful. So thank you for receiving it so well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on too. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me. This was great. And it's a pleasure to meet both of you.
Oh, you too. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Make sure you check out Java Doodles. Just Google it. You'll see everywhere. It's all Java Doodles, right?
Yep. Java Doodles, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. So you'll find me pretty easily.
Everything. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe she's animating one of your favorites. Or do you do that? Do you animate original too? You do original.
Oh yeah.
Is the OC one on your page?
It's actually not. I think I should upload it because I wasn't sure if it would get like a copyright thing.
We had someone ask if you're working on anything exciting these days.
Oh yeah.
Anything you're super excited about.
Well, yesterday I was nominated for a Webby Award, which was very exciting.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, that animation has over, I think, 24 million views on YouTube, on Instagram. It's like that, the throw it out the window animation. So that's, you know, you can cast your vote. It's on the Webby Awards website. It's also in my bio on Instagram. So you could totally vote if you're interested. But as far as new projects go, I'm always seeking out new voice talent, any storytelling. And I'm also working on this really zany kind of 3 a.m. animation kind of vibe, like very like Adult Swim. It's about these like two blobs floating in space talking about existence. So you can find that on my YouTube channel, but I'm going to be putting out more episodes of that very soon. It's very fun.
Oh, that's so fun.
Well, since you did anything if you ever need any voices, we're happy to help.
Oh, I would love that.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to be a voice for you. That would be so much fun.
That sounds so fun.
Well, if you do, please, you can certainly email us at, yes, I appreciate it so much. This is so lovely.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is the highlight of my day. Thank you guys.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Okay. That was so cool. Okay, guys, that is our episode.
My computer died.
See, she's been having some technical issues, but that's okay. Thank you all so much for listening. Please be sure to check my Instagram at the Melinda Clark. Check my stories and posts, as well as our weekly Reddit thread for what episodes we are covering next. Will it be one of your favorites? If so, please go to speakpipe.com/OCBitch or email us at beyondtheocpodcast@gmail.com to let us know why and what makes it your favorite. Do you have a favorite line, a favorite scene? We might play your voicemail on the show or ask you to come on live to discuss. If you'd like to watch this podcast, check it out on Beyond the OC YouTube channel, and you can also leave comments there. But also, you want to be part of the conversation? Join us each week on Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free and to discuss the previous week's episodes live on Zoom. And also, you can join our audience.
We had such a fun audience today. We got to read comments as the episode was going on. So if you want to watch us talk, you know, get some behind the scenes of my computer dying and me having to get up and go plug it into a charger, join our Patreon and you can be a part of the conversation with us.
Yeah, because you'll never know what the unedited or the edited parts out.
Right? You get the uncut version.
And also, please join us next week for number 47 episode.
Season 3, episode 11.
Harbor. Free Marissa. Also, can follow CG.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you're cutting me off.
Oh, yeah.
You can follow both of us on Instagram and on TikTok. My username is CGMIR, and my mom is at the Melinda Clark on all platforms. You can DM us, comment, reach out to us if you have any questions about the episodes and stuff. I am not as active on social media, but my mom, swipe up on the stories, ask questions. I barely go on social media anymore.
You're busy.
We are always available there if you want to reach out to us that way instead.
Anyway, that was such a treat. And check out Java Doodles.
That was so much fun. Java Doodles is awesome. Everyone go check out their stuff. The animations are so cute and funny.
And thank you, everyone who showed up from Patreon. This was a first, so I think it's really cool. And yeah, that's it. So I have nothing left to say, but
with that being
said,
bye, bitches.